Greetings, everyone. What's going on? I've got my friend Ryan here. What's going on, Ryan?
What's up?
We were just gonna have a quick chat, and I figured I'd record it. So yeah, you're gonna observe us having a talk. We've been hanging out for the night and having a few drinks, so figured now's the prime time to have a good philosophical educational video. So I hope you enjoy the ensuing debate / discussion. Anyway, I figured I'd start it off with the topic of individualism versus collectivism. Which, based on those two terms, do you prefer?
Well, between individualism and collectivism, I'd probably go with the collective. The individual does have, merit, and every person can contribute their own amount, but when it comes to everyone working together to accomplish a task and just do stuff in general, there's a lot more that they can accomplish, I guess.
So you would say an individual focus should have the collective as their primary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
when it comes to I'm trying to think of the words. If there was a way to make communism work, I think that would be better for society rather than a purely capitalistic society and only going for the individual and only making it
Get out of your cat. Yeah, and I know what you're saying. See, how I view it is that the stronger the individual, is the equivalent to the stronger the collective. So the stronger the individual, the stronger the collective. So the individual, I think individualism, in a sense, focusing on yourself and focusing on the success of the person that you are, can in itself equivalent to the stronger collective as a whole. So the stronger the individuals are within a collective, the stronger the collective as a whole will be. See, what I find there to be a problem with in the society today is that a lot of people tend to identify themselves as the collective instead of identifying themselves as an individual. So they tend to dilute their personality. They don't really have an individual personality. They tend to have a collective identity. So that kind of leads to a lot of problems. We see that with Black Lives Matter, or and SJWs and shit like that. But
I don't know anyone who considers themselves to be an SJW.
Personally,
that's just kind of a fringe part of the left that has just been blown out of proportion. Anyone who is just
the extreme, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just kind of stupid. It's same with Black Lives Matter, kind of. It's just one of those things that's I'm not in favor of the All Lives Matter movement either, because that's just kind of a Black Lives Matter as a movement, so we're gonna have a movement too.
I agree. I mean, both movements in general, the Black Lives Matter, or versus White Lives Matter. White Lives Matter. We've seen that recently, around college campuses.
I haven't. That's kind of fucked up too. Along with back to with collectivism, I feel the goal of the collective society should benefit the individual, and it should be to make sure everyone is striving and there isn't a single person left behind. When you start leaving people behind, that's when you're going to start having flaws in your society.
Exactly. So would you agree with the idea of equal opportunity or equal outcome?
Well, can you elaborate?
Alright, so equal opportunity is, okay, you and I can both work hard and achieve the same goals, or you and I can both work mediocrely or just fall back on, say, the state to kind of equivalate our outcomes.
So you're kind of talking between I guess capitalistic and a socialistic society.
Yeah, so a pure socialistic society would more or less focus on the equivalence of outcome.
Okay.
But a pure capitalistic society would be only focused on a pure capitalistic society is very individualistic, so it wouldn't focus on necessarily the equivalence of opportunity, because opportunity isn't necessarily being able to achieve the same jobs or have the opportunity to move into the same positions or the opportunity to move into the same careers, but that would differ based on intent or based on effort put into the focus you're trying to get into. But equivalency based on outcome would be more of a welfare state situation where they lift you up to bring you equivalent to the everyone around you, regardless of how smart you are, how mentally equipped you are to handle those positions.
As far as that goes, I would probably be somewhere in the middle. I don't believe that the state should just be a complete welfare state, just giving everyone that's why a communism just wouldn't work as it works on paper, but not when it actually comes down to it, because doctors are held at a better standard than janitors. There is more that goes into actually I guess,
because not everyone is equal at birth, right? So everyone,
yeah,
there are differences between every single person. So some people have certain strengths that others may not have. So you kind of want to focus on those strengths as an individual to amplify your own goals or wants or needs. So the state shouldn't bring you up based on your disabilities, you know what I'm saying?
I feel like society should be somewhere in the middle. We should have somewhat of a welfare state. As far as college goes, making sure it's affordable and if we could do it where it was free, but see, free college has that stigma too. Free college isn't really free. We're paying for it with our taxes. Free college, that's not a thing because we're still paying for it. It's just something our tax dollars would go to. Same with healthcare. I believe that there's a certain extent the state should help, but as far as it goes, the individual does have certain merits too. Everybody should strive to be the best person that they can be and work toward their strengths. But yeah.
See, I agree too. There was this one study done on rats where they pretty much gave a colony of rats all they would ever need, all the food they would ever need, all the housing they would ever need, and over a period of time, the rats became, or I guess over generations, the generation following the original generation became what they ended up calling the pretty rats. They just focused solely on bathing themselves, cleaning themselves, and they wouldn't have to do anything. Everything they needed would be supplied for them, so they had no motivation to do anything. You know what I'm saying? No motivation to be productive for themselves. They had everything they would actually physically need to survive, so they focused only on identity, I guess, so to speak. They wouldn't focus on what they would need in the long term, only how they looked, I guess, so to speak, in the long term.
As far as a rat goes, though,
rats are different than humans, yeah.
Yeah, there's the only things they really need to survive is food and water.
Exactly.
And not really shitty living conditions.
Exactly. See,
but humans are a little more complicated.
Exactly. With healthcare, I agree. In terms of Medicare for all, I know you're familiar with Medicare for all.
Yeah.
I would agree with Medicare for all, but I wouldn't agree with raising taxes for Medicare for all. I think there's a lot of bureaus within the government that are a bit inefficient that maybe we could reduce, or maybe with the military spending, we could reduce military spending and then move that towards healthcare or education.
I would be in favor of since taxes are marginalized for the top of the top, raising taxes on them a little bit, because
at least making them pay the taxes like corporations.
Yeah, with tax havens and all the ways that they can just get out of paying taxes. It's just not fair.
Or corporate welfare. I know you're familiar with that.
Yeah,
that's a bit bullshit. Giving them tax incentives, and with Amazon's working with the Pentagon a lot. They're giving them pretty much tax breaks to supply the Pentagon with what they need. But I think that's bullshit, because that's just favoring certain companies over another.
Corporate welfare kind of stems from a bigger issue too, with the whole if corporation or a billionaire donates to a politician and that politician does what they want, that's bribery. But if a corporation or a billionaire makes a super PAC and that super PAC donates to that politician, that's completely legal. And that
loophole.
Yeah, it's just a lot of legal loopholes that kind of make it so.
Yeah, money in politics is probably one of the bigger issues I would see.
Oh yeah,
yeah. If you get money out of politics, then that reduces the monetary incentive for people to get into politics. In the
for
first
sure.
place. Probably getting rid of the psychopaths.
Right.
And people only focused on getting money, and people who would go into politics would be more focused on policy, and the people who they are actually going to be representing.
Yeah.
And whatnot within society.
Because right now it's just, in order to get reelected as a congressman, you're not so much focusing on policies that are gonna like help or hurt the people. You're more focused on what your donors are gonna
give you money for.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I'd say big pharma, obviously a big issue.
One of the reasons we still have the war on drugs.
Exactly. Fucking stupid as hell.
They see it as competition.
Exactly.
When I think I read a statistic, there was a poll done, and 64% of Americans think that marijuana should be legalized recreationally, not medically. And if we
not represented.
Yeah, we're not represented. Like as far as a lot of those kinds of issues go. Same with like college and medical care. Like
I think like public colleges, community colleges, so to speak, should be free. Maybe universities or some public private universities should probably. I mean, that makes sense. If private universities, you'd have some pay to pay for, but community colleges, that makes sense for those to be free, because I feel like a more educated populace leads to a more productive society in general.
Oh, I agree completely.
But when we look at the educational society as a whole, or the academic society, do you see any issues within the academic society?
What do you mean?
Like, what I see a lot of within the academic society is they're moving away from more practical academia to more identitarian academia. They're more like things like gender studies. There's more classes you have to take that won't even.
So kind of like more or less like what.
They're focusing less on the academia and more on the feelings.
Gotcha. As society as a whole, I feel like we should always be in favor of science completely. Like in other modernized industrial countries, even the far right in those countries, they still believe in science.
Right.
They don't deny climate change like Republicans in America do. They because that's ridiculous. It's just. Or they don't deny evolution either. Like, it's scientific fact should be taken at the highest merit, and
exactly, it should be based on empirical data and not just how you feel it should be.
Yeah, like
what is actually going on. We got to get into the grid of it, figure out what the fuck is going on, and just go based on what we've actually seen and not based on what we feel we should see.
Yeah,
so to speak. Yeah, so I guess I'd want to make a point on. And climate change, my feelings with climate change. I feel like climate change is happening.
Oh yeah, no, and it affects everything too. I actually did read a study not too long ago. By the end of the century, almost all of the Middle East is going to be uninhabitable. They're going to start going through major drought, and if there's one thing that's going to unite a people more than anything,
it's the
lack of water.
Yeah. Saudi Arabia, their water table is lowering constantly.
Yeah, and
they're having to import it to even provide water to the populace.
And even in California recently, when they were going through a drought, they didn't have water for water was scarce for a while. Imagine countries that aren't as well off as the United States going through a drought that severe.
They don't have the money necessarily to bring in that water or provide desalination stations, because those are expensive.
Yeah, like I said, nothing will unite a people more and make.
Oh shit! Okay, that was weird.
Yeah, that was.
I don't know what the fuck happened there. But I guess to slide into the conspiracy section of more. But have you ever looked into the government's meddling with weather in general, HARP stations, so to speak?
No, I know the government is shady. There were even some fucking, like MK Ultra, for example, where we tried to brainwash people with fucking a fucking IV of LSD.
Yeah.
That like I couldn't, like prisoners, fucking in
Prisoners,
our prison systems. They put them on a tap, like a drip of LSD.
Dude, could you fucking imagine?
And then people like fucking people in lab coats would come in and just fucking
How you feeling?
it was a brainwashing thing too. So it was like,
I know they tried to use it as like a truth serum, and then like as an anti-truth serum. Like if you got caught like in Russia and you're a CIA agent, like you take like your LSD pill and be like, all right, you can't tell the truth, so to speak, or you can resist their truth serum, so to speak. I know there's a couple instances within the MK Ultra project where they created an aerosol LSD. So an LSD where they could like a spray, pretty much. So they put some of the shit in the New York City subway stations, and they also released this. There was a city, town, not a city, but a town in France where in the early '60s where they pretty much sprayed this whole town in like aerosol LSD, and there were like reports of like people like killing their grandmothers and just kind of like slowly going crazy because the aerosol LSD.
Yeah, if you're just exposed to LSD at all times
without knowing,
especially without knowing, you're probably gonna go fucking nuts.
Like, all right, everything's kind of moving, everything's starting to feel weird.
A government conspiracy that isn't so much a conspiracy, more or less just something that's fucked up, is something Obama was pushing for near the end of his term, like extremely hard. One of the very only good things Trump actually did, he didn't do the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have effectively given corporations more power than the state in some aspects, because there would have been an international tribunal between all of the countries that were in the TPP, and the corporations, the major corporations, would be able to elect people to represent the corporations in this tribunal, and they would judge different cases and stuff. So pretty much if like France, if there was a corporation and they started dumping like barrels of fucking chemical waste in like waterways and people started getting sick, France would be like, no, you can't do that. No. They could take it to the International Tribunal, and those corporations could be like, yes, they can.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah,
okay.
That's fine. Like,
it's not hurting anyone.
like, no one's getting poisoned.
So with the TPP, I knew about the TPP, but so they'd have like an international, like almost court system.
Yeah. Run
by the corporations.
Yeah, and any state.
Fucked up.
And not only that, it's another trade deal. They say it's free trade, but it's more or less giving away our jobs.
Yeah.
Like because any corporation, any place inside of that, any partner in the trade deal, they can create factories and then start hiring workers for practically slave wages and then ship their goods to the States for practically free.
Exactly, because we're the consumers. I mean, in the long term, I don't think that would be effective because as the jobs ship out, there's less money for the population to actually spend on consumer goods. But in the short term, yeah, they're going to make a fuck ton because they can take these jobs that Americans once had and made a lot of money for and ship them out to places like China, India, where they're people are willing to work for next to nothing.
Whatever they can get. Like, if it's that bad, then if there's a job that comes along that pays fucking $2 an hour, like, you're going to take it just because.
Exactly. I agree with, like, a trade on need basis. Like, we shouldn't trade with another country unless we necessarily need something they have, like oil or, like, some sort of specific resource we need for the production we are doing, like steel or like some sort of, like, plant-based resource that we need, like clothing. Shit like that. Because, no, not everything can be grown in the United States or produced within the United States. Now, I know with oil, the Americans within places like the Dakotas or the Alaskan region, we have discovered enough oil to pretty much put ourselves above Saudi Arabia. We have more oil than even places like Saudi Arabia now.
Yeah, I actually did know about, like we have a lot of oil reserves that we just don't use.
Exactly. Like, I don't think we should be focusing on oil consumption?
No, renewable energy all the way. We should be completely setting all of our focus into fucking wind energy, solar energy, and fucking...
I think solar is even more effective than wind. Wind's nice, but I think solar is more effective in the sense that you can put it on every building possible. So there should be some sort of
if we really wanted to, like, we could fund fucking policies where everyone could have solar panels on their houses and gardens in their yard for food. Like, we just don't do it.
Exactly. Like with the gardens, that's more of like an individual basic. Like, I think everyone should do it. Like, I personally, like, by the time I end up getting my own property, I would like to do that myself, because I think if you...
be self-sustainable, yeah.
Exactly. You just have the knowledge to be able to grow your own food and the capability to.
Yeah.
But I do agree with, like, if they're making, like, a whole new suburban sector, they should have, like, a mandate where it's like, all right, all these new buildings are going to be made energy efficient and have, like, solar panels based on their roofs. And
the more money, it's not really foreseeable right now because we're not advanced enough in renewable energies. But the more money that gets funneled into it, it's just like our smartphones. Like, it's only gonna become better and better,
cheaper.
better.
I think wind is about equivalent to coal right now. So that's pretty good. So, like, would you rather go with coal or would you rather go with wind? That's
obviously wind. Like,
exactly.
Just because, like, it doesn't hurt our environment for one. Like, that's something that's, like, back to fucking climate change. Like, anyone who denies it just isn't looking at, like...
The climate is changing. Now, necessarily the main factor isn't necessarily determined. Like, humans are a huge factor, but there's also things like methane, which happens to, like, from cows and shit, which I guess would be human related. So in terms of, like, factory farming, we should definitely reduce how much factory farming we're doing, because in a sense that's just necessarily immoral to be locking up thousands of cows and
or like the chickens were like, it's an entire just cages, tiny ass cages.
They'll live there their whole lives, and then we'll just slaughter them and throw them into a meat grinder.
I seen a fucking thing where they were just like throwing baby chickens, like
I know what you're talking about.
Male chickens into just a grinder, like they were just on an assembly belt, just going right into the grinder, and because they can't lay any eggs.
Is that like the McDonald's paste? McDonald's paste shit.
That shit's fucked up too. Fucking the what is it? It's like something slime.
Pink slime.
Pink slime,
slime.
Yeah, McDonald's chicken nuggets and everything.
So many chickens are killed every year, man.
I don't even really eat McDonald's that much anymore, but like I like their chicken nuggets, and it makes
it's sad.
It is.
I try not to too.
Like all those kinds of places, it's just like, where does this shit come from? And it's
like, you know where it's coming from. Like, have you heard of? I think it's in like Pennsylvania and like maybe like Carolinas. There's these pig factories where the pigs sit in these cages and they sit over these like slits in the ground, and then when they like shit basically and like piss, it goes into these like big runways, and all the shit and the piss gets put into these big ponds, essentially shit ponds, and they just
giant shit ponds,
and they spray it. That's how they get rid of it. They just put it in. They hook it up to the sprinkler system and they spray it into the air, and the wind that takes that shit downwind into like some like local towns and shit, and that's all they smell, and that's all they feel. They can, like, have you seen videos of that? There's like just giant sprinklers just shooting.
I haven't seen anything about that, but something kind of related, like pollution wise. Have you seen any videos or any news articles about New Delhi in India?
No. New Delhi? Oh, with the air quality?
Yeah, the air quality in New Delhi is like one day in their air system is the equivalent of smoking 44 cigarettes a day.
I know India's pretty bad.
It's like that, and that just kind of goes with like we need to regulate like factories and big corporations, because otherwise they will just pollute wherever the fuck they want in the case of freedom.
Exactly. They aren't necessarily concerned with environmentalism.
No, only profit.
Exactly.
It's like private prisons. Like, do you want your prisons to rehabilitate people and try and get them out, or do you want them to be only focused on making money?
Oh, dude, I think in Vermont, they dropped Sanders. They dropped.
Bernie would have won.
I mean, quick aside to that, I feel like he would have. Like, I know I've seen some people on the internet say that he wouldn't have even if he had won the primaries, because it's come out now with have you seen with down in Brazil with her new book and shit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where she exposes
basically
the DNC was just another branch of the Hillary campaign.
Like most people knew, but now it's like officially even the mainstream has to accept that.
Yeah, and like the news just doesn't do it any justice. Like regular mainstream media, they're too focused on the new Cold War with Russia.
Yeah, it's all fucking. You hear what they said about her? They're totally trying to discredit her. They're saying like, well, Putin got to her.
Putin got to her. Like he fucking. Dude, all the Russia stuff. Like there's some merit to some certain things with the Russia stuff, but most of it is just hysteria. It's just.
Like, they bought like several thousand fake accounts on Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter troll accounts is like a bigger news than fucking down in Brazil admitting that the DNC was taking money for Hillary Clinton, her campaign.
Yeah, literally, she controlled the DNC because they were going bankrupt.
They were, it's nuts. It's just nuts.
Now, back to the pollution shit we were talking about. Within India, I was going to say something. Did you see there was this video of it was a river? I think it was in Delhi too. Delhi's just really fucked up right now. There's this river, and it was just a river of trash.
I think I did see
just
that.
flowing down. There's a bunch of like kids like along the riverway, and just constant trash flowing down this river. Could you imagine that shit happening here? Like I know, like people don't necessarily.
Like with the South Dakota pipeline that fucking everyone was protesting. It just fucking leaks, like, I think 210,000 gallons of fucking...
Like, what you expect?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what they expect?
Like, I understand, like with the oil, I know we have, like, a shale boom going on with the shale oil. Have you heard of that much? It's like,
not really.
They're able to extract, like, oil from, like, these, like, rock layers, basically. Mm-hmm. So that's how we've discovered so much oil within Americas. Now, I think we should... extract that oil. I don't necessarily think we should be using it. I think we should extract it in case we do happen to need it, in case of an energy shortage, because I think we should become energy independent, so we don't necessarily have to rely on Saudi Arabia.
Oh yeah, we shouldn't even be like we America
ties.
America considers itself to be all humanitarian and fucking democracy, freedom, and like Saudi Arabia, they're ISIS that made it. They are religious Islamic. ISIS with borders. They fucking behead people in the public square for being atheists and being a woman who fucking went shopping
without
on her
a
own.
man.
Yeah, exactly. Women are property in Saudi Arabia, but they're our allies.
You know what I find to be funny? Is have you heard of that new robot, Sophia, or whatever?
I have. I've seen that. Saudi Arabia gave her citizenship, that thing. It's creepy.
That AI,
I don't like it. It's super creepy.
That robot has more rights than the actual woman within Saudi Arabia.
On a good note, though, women can now drive in Saudi Arabia.
That's pretty good.
I don't know if you heard about that.
But
yeah, they just very recently I
think it's just so. I think the men realized, oh shit, I'm drunk. I want to drive home so I can just have my women drive me. Wow.
That's it. It probably has something to do with just the laziness of like I'm so sick of fucking driving.
Let's just let the fucking women drive.
That's okay. They can't have rights, but they can drive me home when I'm smashed.
They can drive me home when I'm smashed. All right, let's take our conversation to the next topic.
To the next level.
I wanted to talk to you about free will and determinism.
Free will and determinism.
And the correlation between them. Now, would you say the universe is leaning more towards determinism or more towards free will based on your own perception? It's a hard one, I know.
See, I'm kind of a mix between this because I believe determinism to be the major factor, but I also believe in the many worlds theory, where there is an infinite number of different universes and possibilities. So in the infinite spectrum of possibilities, you are set in your specific universe, and depending on like how you were brought up in your culture and all past decisions you made is going to affect every decision you're going to make in the future and here on out in that specific universe.
Multiple other universes.
Get out of here. Fucking crazy. But no.
Discredit this.
Discredit that. But what I was gonna say is it depends. Now, are we a universe among an infinite amount of universe, or are we, say, the trunk of the tree and the branches are the other universes? Are we the main universe, or are we just a universe among universes, so to speak? So, like, are our actions not necessarily determined, but more inspired or aspired to lead us down a certain path? And while I agree that all possibilities are possible and are happening at the same time, but is everything that's happening right now determined in a sense, or more or less supposed to happen? Or are we along like the main timeline correlated to the ulterior timelines? What do you think based on that little side bit?
See, I believe, like I said, we have free will to an extent. We can, like, at any moment, you can just decide to just, like, I don't know, just to fucking, like, if you went to the store, you can either buy a bunch of shit, or you can decide to shove a bunch of shit in your pockets and steal a bunch of shit. Whether you steal or whether you buy it, it's determined by all your past thoughts and everything else that you've ever done.
Leading up to it.
Yep.
Exactly. Like, the story that is your life kind of determines the rest of the story, so to speak. Like, everything kind of, like, builds on itself. Which is weird to think about, you know? Like we feel, like, day to day, like, moment to moment, we feel like we have free will.
Like, full control of our lives.
But in the long term, it's almost like everything is either set to be, or was meant to happen, or you kind of get this weird feeling that, like, maybe some people you were, like, that you meet, or, like, you were supposed to meet, or some things that happen are supposed to happen to lead you down a certain set of experiences that will cause you to react a certain way to a certain circumstance.
Honestly, in my opinion, it's super crazy to think about that. Any decision you make and every single person you meet can just completely run you down a different
the fucking
path.
Ripple effect.
Yeah, the butterfly effect. It can just lead you into, like,
fucking down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so to speak. Man, it's fucking nuts. Like shit that happened in your childhood. Most people don't realize that shit that happened within their childhood, the shit that happened in their early adulthood, it really affects the rest of their lives. So, like, the way you were raised is going to affect how you act now. Like, whether you had a shitty childhood or a good childhood will make it so you're more either resentful or more open to the world. But I think it has to do. I think there's like when it comes to, like, okay, so I'm going to bring Nietzsche into this a little bit. So he has
Friedrich Nietzsche.
Friedrich Nietzsche. Have you heard of his book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra?
I haven't actually.
I haven't read it, but
I have his book Beyond Good and Evil, and that's, like, there's a lot of good points in there. Like, I really like it.
Yeah.
But continue.
Okay. So he had an idea that, or in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Zarathustra came down from his mountain that he spent 10 years upon, and he gathered wisdom up on this mountain. He came down to spread his knowledge among humanity. And when he came down to spread his knowledge upon humanity, he realized that the masses were not necessarily receptive to his wisdom. So he realized that only a certain class of individual was going to be receptive to his certain experiences or wisdom. And he called them the higher man. The higher man...
I know about the Superman.
Superman is something he said that everyone should strive towards, but can't necessarily achieve. Mm-hmm. It's more or less like the worm trying to become God. If you couldn't be amused with the worm trying to become God...
That'd be interesting to see. Worm God.
Worm God.
I hope when I die I get to meet Worm God.
Worm God.
Just...
Like I did it on the worm there. The worm that became God.
Like...
No. Okay. So with the higher man, it's more or less a class of men that are able to receive a certain set of messages and be open to and be able to contemplate without discriminating against. Okay. So when I tell you, oh my God, what the fuck? Can you let him out?
Yeah, fucking Merlin, dude. Get out of here. Go fuck someone else's dale.
Okay. So the higher man is a class of man that is receptive to a message that most men aren't. And when I say men, I mean human race. I don't mean feminine.
Yeah, like, oh, you fucking sexist.
Fucking sexist. So just humans in general. Now, would you agree that there is a I don't want to say class, but
every society has classes.
Every society has classes, like, not to be classist, but like there's a group.
Be classy, not classless.
Thank you. But a group within the collective that is more receptive to certain messages than others. Like there's the masses, and then there's the higher man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying.
Like there are some people that are able to more intimately digest certain messages. Like most people will just hear things without really thinking about it, but then there's a certain class of men that will hear something, ingest it, and then actually think about it deeply, reflect upon it, and realize how it contemplates with within their experiences. So
the atheist versus the religious fundamentalist.
Yeah, so to speak. Like I'm not an atheist. I live my day-to-day experiences as an atheist, but I think there is some...
I'm kind of agnostic. When I think of a god, I kind of just more or less imagine just the universe.
That's what I think.
As a whole is just, it's just an unfeeling, unknowing... It's not human. It's not anything we would ever understand. It's just...
I say we are the... What's the word? We are the senses of the universe. We are the eyes of the universe.
Yeah. We are the what's the word? I can't think of the word.
like senses, right?
Yeah, it's
So we see for the universe. We are the limbs of the universe.
Yeah. The universe would not exist if there were no observers. That's the word I was thinking.
Exactly. That goes back to a Newton. Where he, at the end of his theory, the Principia of Mathematics or something like that, that one collection he wrote, where at the end he says, alright, he creates the laws of motion, but he says at the end there has to be watchers. And he called it the Grand Mover, which is kind of what he dubbed. He ran out of ideas, so he dubbed it the Grand Mover, which was his idea of God. So everything moves, but only because there is something to move it, so to speak.
Okay.
So there's only the laws of physics because someone set in place the laws of physics.
Well, the Big Bang.
Big Bang, yes, exactly. Whether the Big Bang happened as they said or some other circumstance, everything is lawful. Everything happens. It's there's chaotic patterns to the universe. Everything is distributed in a sense that it creates a pattern. Have you heard of the golden ratio, or
I've heard of it, but
or what's it called? It's when you look at seashells or flowers, everything kind of
oh, okay, I know what you're talking about.
Blooms in a certain pattern, and nature has a certain pattern to it.
Yeah,
it almost seems chaotic. And what's the word? It's fractal mathematics.
Okay.
Ever heard of fractal mathematics?
I haven't.
Okay. So there's these trippy videos you can look at online, and it's a formula where everything diverses itself infinitely, basically, but it creates certain sets of patterns within itself. Within the randomness, it seems random from the observer from the outside, but when you look at the individual sets, it becomes... There's patterns within the individual sets, and as a whole, there is a pattern, but from just the outside, it looks random. So I tend to think of the universe as chaotic patterns. There's patterns to the universe, but it's not exactly... if everything was determined, there would be no free will, so to speak. If the end was already completely finished without... if there was only one universe with one set of laws. You said you believed in the infinite worlds theory, so to speak, many worlds theory. So that means there was an infinite amount of possibilities, an infinite amount of universes with an infinite amount of sets of laws. So that means anything that can happen, will happen, and is happening. So that means that there isn't necessarily predeterminism, but that also means that there is. because there can only be, in a way, a limited set of infinite. Because between the numbers, like, say for example, between the numbers 1 and 2, there's an infinite amount of numbers between 1 and 2, 1.1, 1.11, 1.11, and so on. So there's an infinite amount of numbers between 1 and 2, and so on. So in the same way that there's an infinite amount between 1 and 2, there's also just the numbers 1 and 2. You can determine that because 1 and 2. So there's a pattern for that, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Alright, I'll take a pause here. I don't really know what to say after that.
Like, I felt like you were getting to, like, a grand, like, point, and then, like, it just...
the booze, man. It gets to you. That's pretty good, though. I could probably cut it off there if you wanted.
Can you like edit 2 videos together?
Yeah, sure.
So if we went out for like a cigarette, could we come back and start another video?
Yeah.
And then edit it together? Okay.
Yeah.